Belmont Stakes time on the Turf and Touchdowns podcast. We are looking forward to one of the races, if not the race of the season so far. We have everyone that we wanted turning up from the Kentucky Derby. It's a smaller field, only 8 of them to go to post, but we've got the ones that we wanted. We'll be dicing through them throughout the next 25 minutes or so. Luke Elder, as always, alongside Tom Collins. And so far, Tom, the Triple Crown's been kind to us.
It's been really kind, yeah. We had double play in the Kentucky Derby and Sovereignty landed us the spoils there. He was obviously a long-term play for both of us going into that race. Then we had Journalism in the Preakness, a race that was pretty easy to assess, but he still had to overcome significant trouble in running. Can we make it 3 from 3? That's what we're going to try and do in the next 20 minutes or so.
What was it you just called it then? A double play?
I might have done, I can't remember.
You called it a double play. This isn't baseball.
Well, a joint play, a double play, same diff.
I don't even know if double play is a baseball thing. Anyone in America is watching? Double play? I don't know. It's a weird sport. We don't do it over here. But we are looking to joint play our way through the Triple Crown. Maybe that ends today. Maybe we go with different horses. We will tell you in a few moments' time. But we have got Sovereignty, we have got Journalism, we have got Baeza, we've got a few others thrown in as well. Hill Road, a fascinating runner. But first and foremost, this podcast is brought to you by Iron Horse Stallions, home of Bacaro, sire of fantastic runners the likes of Bookham, Dano, Queen Maxima, and also Cyclonite, who's been doing very well over in the UK. Queen Maxima as well recently has been absolutely flying. She is catered for Grade 1 company in the future. Go check those guys out, ihstallions.com, and thank you very much to those guys for sponsorship as well. Let's just get straight into the Belmont, Tom. We'll do it sort of as quickly as we possibly can, but first we need to mention the subs. You know what I'm talking about, yeah?
Yeah, the subscribers. Come on, guys. We want 800.
We're on 781. Now, I thought, Tom, we'd play a little bit of a game.
Go on.
Because I don't know if you know, Royal Ascot's coming up.
It is in just over, actually, no, it's 2 weeks, isn't it, today?
2 weeks. By this time, in 2 weeks' time, we will know the first day of results. That will include some American horses. That will include Carl Spackler, who's running in the Queen Anne. Now, we've had loads of messages saying, are you guys going to do a Royal Ascot American runner-by-runner analysis? And we're thinking, well, maybe. But let's put it to you guys. If we reach 800 subscribers by the time the Belmont's run...
Yeah, Saturday night.
By the time the Belmont's run and 75 likes on this video, next week we will do a Royal Ascot American Horse runner-by-runner analysis video. So we need to get to 800 subscribers and we want 75 likes on the video. If you're already subscribed, that's great. Tell your friends. Get them to come and subscribe. That would be great. And also leave a like on the video. That would be wonderful. But let's get Turf and Touchdowns talking about Royal Ascot. And right now, we'll get Turf and Touchdowns talking about the Belmont Stakes, which, as you say, Tom, it looks a cracker. On the morning lines, Journalism is 8-5 favourite, so he's favoured over Sovereignty again. That's not the way of things over in the UK regards to the English markets. The English markets favour Sovereignty. I'm not overly surprised by that. America have got more of an affinity with Journalism, let's say.
Yeah, potentially. I do think that Journalism will be favourite in both the UK and US come the off. But I do think it'll be quite close. Obviously, the morning line has it Journalism at 8-5, Sovereignty at 2-1. I think that's roughly right. I don't see Sovereignty really drifting up from 2-1. It's more that the money will come for Journalism. Everyone saw that Preakness win. There is no one in the globe that didn't because it was so impressive. It was plastered all over social media, even if you didn't watch the race at the time. And when you watch that, your eyes tell you that is a good horse. And when that happens, the horse takes money next time, regardless of who he's against. So I wouldn't be surprised if Journalism went off a lot shorter. But this is a really good race, Luke, with probably the best three-year-olds in the crop right now, facing off against one another on probably the best track in America at Saratoga. It's going to be a real test, and maybe we'll finally work out who is the best 3-year-old. We have had some hints, Kentucky Derby being one, where these 3 faced off, the Preakness being another. This is the final hint where these 3 face off in the middle part of the season.
Until we get to the Classic. You'd hope they're going to turn up. I mean, I really sincerely hope we get to see these 3 face off again like 2 or 3 more times in the season. And I want this just to become a battle that turns into, in 20 years' time, we look back and go, do you remember Sovereignty when he took on Journalism and Baeza? That was amazing for the season. But Best prices over in the UK at the moment on the international market, and these are, as I say, the best prices from all bookmakers. Sovereignty is 2-1, Journalism 9-4, Baeza at 5-1. Rodriguez is 8-1 best price. He is as short as 5-1 though, which is the same firm that's got Baeza at 5s as well. Hill Road is 16-1, Crudo at 20s, Heart of Honour, the English runner for Jamie Osborne and Safi Osborne, is 40-1, and Uncaged is 100-1, the Rapoli runner. No real shocks regards to that. So look, we'll dive into things, Tom. From a pace perspective, there are a few horses that want to close late on. We know that regards to Sovereignty. We know that regards to the likes of Hill Road. I've got a sneaking suspicion in here that they might try and make a bit of Baeza and try and send him forward. If not leading, at least in the first three.
I think he'll sit third. So we're kind of on the similar lines there. I do think that Rodriguez has one way of going, and that is forward. I'd be shocked if he didn't make the front, especially considering the two horses drawn inside him, he's in gate 3, are both closers. It seems like Mike Smith's just going to send and see if he can hold on the lead. Much like we saw from him in the Wood Memorial. Crudo's kind of been put in the race, I believe, to go forward and try and make the pace as well, but he's not quick enough to lead Rodriguez. I do think Baeza will move up into third, and then maybe Journalism will track him through. But it's a different pace scenario to what we saw in the Derby and obviously in the Preakness as well. Not as much speed, but this is a Triple Crown race. No matter how big the field, no matter who's in the field, they're going to go solid fractions.
They are. And this wouldn't be like it would be new things for Baeza. I know that Baeza didn't necessarily go forward, had a horrible draw in the Kentucky Derby anyway, right out wide. He was obviously the first reserve and he came in as 21. But he has sat close to the pace when he managed to win his maiden special weight at Santa Anita 3 starts ago now. And in the Santa Anita Derby as well, he sat relatively close to the pace and got first run on Journalism that day as well. It wouldn't be a massive shock if Baeza sat closer to the pace. One thing we do know, Tom, is that Sovereignty won't be there, but we'll look at Journalism to start with. Now, look, he got a bare speed figure of 98 for that Preakness effort. Obviously, he could have done a ton more, and he probably should be worth a number far bigger than that. I mean, quite simply, in any race, let alone Grade 1 company, let alone in the Preakness, you don't suffer that sort of interference turning for home and win. That's just unheard of.
It was a phenomenal effort. It was definitely a career best. And this was a horse who'd already shown quite a good level of ability. Leading up to the Kentucky Derby, he had won a couple of West Coast Stakes races, Grade 1s. And then he went into the Derby as the favourite. I think we were both a little bit cold on him. I thought he'd run in the 3. You were a little bit more tepid. I don't know where you thought he'd finish, but we didn't like him as a bet. And we were right in saying that. He was short enough. But I thought he kind of surpassed our expectations and he ran great to finish second behind Sovereignty. It was a tough trip in the early part of the race, but he did get a nice run through. The Preakness was a much better display, albeit he was facing worse horses. To overcome that kind of traffic coming around the home turn and then the big bump from goal oriented was just phenomenal. And that final 100 yards, I think everyone who's a horse racing fan had their hairs on their arms. They were stood up because it was like you were watching a phenom on the track there in Journalism. Now, the question is, he's coming back again off a short break, doing the Triple Crown, albeit he hasn't won the first race, the Kentucky Derby, but he still competed in all 3 events. It's very, very difficult. Obviously, 2-week gap, 3-week gap, quickly back on the track, being forced to run in these Grade 1s. You never know when a horse is going to underperform. And for me, albeit connections believe he's still firing on all cylinders, I'm a little bit concerned about the layoff. And at a short price, I'm not willing to play Journalism as a result. But I do fully respect his talent. He is a top quality 3-year-old. If he maybe skipped the Preakness, I could have picked him in this race. If he skipped the Derby, I could have picked him in this race. But doing 3 races in a row, when there are fresher horses and very talented fresher horses, I decided to look elsewhere. Couple of quick stats, because I do think Journalism will go off favourite. So this applies to him. Favourites in the Belmont Stakes, 155 runnings, 66 winners. It's been a good race for market leaders and also for horses who have previously won a Triple Crown race. Sovereignty and Journalism fall into that category here. 42 Belmont Stakes winners from the 155 runnings have been horses who have previously won a Triple Crown race. So that stands both Journalism and Sovereignty in good stead.
It does. It does. You mentioned about Journalism might have been your pick had he not ran in the Preakness or the Derby. I get the angle with the Derby. The Preakness, if anything, for me, it cemented his place as an elite top-level horse. Look, the Derby run was very good. You can't take that away from him. He was brilliant back in second. But If he comes straight here to take on Sovereignty, in my mind, I'd be like, well, how are you going to beat Sovereignty? You've had everything go right for you in the Derby. I say everything go right. He had some interference early on, but I don't want to overstate that. He still got into a nice position. One of the big concerns for me is Umberto Rispoli. Since the Preakness, he's really not been riding fantastically. He's made a few boneheaded mistakes over at Santa Anita. Tactically, he's been in the wrong place a lot as well. Now, on the whole, Umberto Rispoli is a fantastic rider. He is not a guy that would concern me at all. But when you're dealing with a race where, quite frankly, Tom, you're going to have to be in the perfect position, pushing buttons at the right time, I don't know. I've got it in the back of my mind. I'm not 100% happy with how it is at the moment.
Potentially, I feel like it's very difficult for him to mess this one up. I do respect Umberto. I think he's a very good rider. Maybe he isn't riding as well over the last couple of weeks, but you're drawn 7. I mean, this is an ideal spot. You've got Baeza to just track across. The horse in 8, Heart of Honor, is a very slow starter, typical European. And so he's kind of got one option, right? Which is just to sit behind Baeza, maybe 4th or 5th on the outside, and then let him roll. I don't see how the jockey could potentially mess this one up. Now, we don't know how races turn out. We just predict them, and sometimes it is what we expect and sometimes it isn't. But for me, Rispoli just has to get into the spot that everyone thinks he will be in. Regarding your first point about the Preakness, I fully respect that, and I do agree with what you're saying, insofar as that Preakness performance showed he is as good as people hyped and better than what we saw in the Derby, which was still a high level. However, if he didn't run in the Preakness, I would know that he's coming in fresh. He's only got a little bit to find with Sovereignty. Maybe he's improved a touch. He ran in that Preakness, and albeit he won, he had a super hard race. Not only did he take that big bump, but he was under pressure before the bump, and he still finished that contest in electric sectionals. Like, he finished off 110% maximum, basically. It's not like he was able to finish off on the bridle. So you just don't know how much it's taken out of him, and I don't like the fact he's not fresh.
No, and one final point on journalism before we move on. I don't think he travelled very well throughout the Preakness whatsoever. I don't know whether that's a kickback thing, because in the Derby, if you recall, he was on the rail early on because he almost got sort of pushed there. And Umberto Rispoli made the real smart move as they turned into the back straight just to bring him out, and then he got no kickback whatsoever. From 7, he should be okay. I mean, you have got the option to go wider, but it is something, again, to keep in mind. But journalism, he's a favourite, morning line favourite at least, that we're a little more lukewarm upon. We both love Sovereignty. Look, he did us a great turn. He did everyone at home that watches Turf and Touchdowns a great turn in the Kentucky Derby as well. He performed to a figure of 105 that day. I think he silenced all the doubters. That said, if you're going to be negative about him, you couldn't have designed a better trip into a Kentucky Derby than the one he got.
Yeah, he got a lovely trip through the early part of the race, albeit he did stumble after maybe 3 or 4 strides. The rest of the race went completely to plan. They went hard up top. The field was strung out. He was towards the back. Then he tipped to the outside. He had one clear run, a sweeping move around the turn, and he had journalism to kind of chase and pass in the home straight. So everything did go to plan. On the other hand, that was his first ever run on the slop. We didn't know if he would handle it, and he did. And question marks there are, is he a better horse on a fast track? Because I thought he was basically a horse that was going to win the Derby on a fast track anyway, yet he goes on the slop, maybe not his ideal surface, and still beat the rest. Maybe he prefers a fast track and we'll see an even better display, but that's to be seen. What we do know is that he does handle the slop, and the weather this week in Saratoga, it's a bit hit and miss. It always is in Saratoga. There are some showers, there are some dry spells. We don't know what we're going to get. But if the track is sloppy, I'm fine with it. If it's fast, I actually think Sovereignty is helped by that. As you said, we are big fans of the horse. He's done us a good turn. He comes into this race fresh. I like that they've skipped the Preakness when it comes to analysing the Belmont. My one issue with him is that he's drawn in gate 2. Now, that's not a negative as such. The bit I don't like is that Hill Road is the horse inside him, another closer. I would quite like Sovereignty to get in front of Hill Road in the early part of the race. Not be forwardly placed by any means, but get on that rail. I think that is the key. Save some ground and then tip out in the home straight. Loyalty has to go out of the equation when you're betting and you're analysing races. As much as we have loyalty to this horse, I still think he's the one to beat just from an analytical point of view. And if he can reproduce that Derby performance with a little bit of improvement from that time he's had to develop since, I think it's going to be tough.
I don't have a problem with him, honestly, clearing the rail or clearing to the rail and overcoming Hill Road. Hill Road, in the Peter Pan, he was pretty slowly away. I think this is a horse he just doesn't have early gate speed, which is fine because his closing sectionals are absolutely fantastic. We saw that in the Peter Pan when he managed to run down McAfee and Captain Cook. One question to put to you: what does Sovereignty have that most others, Uncaged is the only other one, don't have in this race?
Is this a question where you have an answer?
Yeah.
I don't know. Tell me the answer.
It's a run at Saratoga, which I think
Oh,
is a
yes.
big thing. No one else has run at Saratoga. Uncaged has. He's 1 from 1. But I mean, he's not really a contender in here for me. Fair play to Mike Rapoli and a team for having a go. You might get some prize money. But when they were talking about putting the horse in the race, there might have only been 6 in here. At that point, yeah, sure, throw your horse in. Try and get as much prize money as you possibly can. But I feel the fact that he's already been here at Saratoga, that's a big help. Saratoga's a funny track. Some horses can excel here and they can put in ridiculous speed figures. You look back at horses a few years ago, Imperial Hint, I think he broke 3 separate track records in one race. Chancelot, albeit there was plenty more to that story. Sovereignty, the fact he's got experience at this track and also he closed over a trip that was too short early on in his career, I think that's a big thing. Like I say, Tom, Saratoga's a funny track. It does help to know your way around here.
Yeah, I actually had that written in my notes, but I just didn't say it. He finished fourth in that run, didn't he? He broke so slowly. He was way out the back. He must have been 20 lengths off the leaders. And as they panned into the home turn, he was basically out the back, out with the washing and no chance. And then as you continuously watched the replay, he is making up ground hand over fist and actually past the line. He's first on the gallop out. So he handled Saratoga. And Saratoga is known for a long sweeping home turn. It's a little bit, it's kind of similar to Churchill, but it's not the same. But that turn will allow him to make that big move, kind of like we saw at Churchill, and get into contention and then up the home straight. We know he can fire on that Saratoga home turn and home straight. So I think he'll be able to run by them all. The one horse that's a bit of a question is the next one we're going to talk about.
And that horse is Baeza. Flavion Pratt taking the ride for John Sheriffs. Honestly, going into the Derby, I really doubted this horse. I wasn't overly keen on the Californian form full stop, regards to journalism and Baeza. My name's Luke Elder. I got that wrong. He ran a really good race, that did Baeza. He finished back in third. He was closing and he was probably the biggest eye catcher in the entirety of the race. The one thing that went right for the other two is they went wide. They had a nice trip into the race and they had a clear run into the race. Baeza didn't have that though, Tom. We were sort of discussing things after we put our selection in because we never discussed the race before we put our selections in, and then we never waver after that. But we both said to each other with Baeza, if this was an actual Belmont Stakes run at Belmont over a mile and a half, he would probably be the play for I think both of us in the race. However, it isn't at Belmont and it's not over a mile and a half.
Yeah, and there are 2 factors. To be fair, I don't necessarily mind Saratoga for the horse, but I do mind the trip. I think he's the strongest stayer in the race, yet Sovereignty and Journalism are obviously both strong at the distance, as we've seen in the Kentucky Derby, and Journalism in the Preakness. But I think Baeza is a proper stout stayer. The mile and a half will be absolutely up his street. The one issue I have with Baeza is that he seems to get out-kicked at crucial parts of the race. He seems to lose a little bit of momentum and he can't quicken as quickly as Sovereignty and Journalism did. If you watch back the Derby, he's actually alongside Sovereignty going into the home turn. When they get into the home straight, Sovereignty is 2 lengths clear. Now, Baeza didn't have that lovely wide trip, as you say, but he also wasn't massively inconvenienced, just 2 horses inside of him. So I think he lacks a middle gear. And then in the Derby we saw in the final furlong, he was the quickest finisher. If Baeza's forwardly placed here, it's going to be tough for Sovereignty and Journalism to beat him unless they produce a big sweeping move on that home turn, swoop on by, and then hope to hold him off. If Baeza turns in front and those 2 are behind and they're max going 100%, I don't think they'll reel him in. But I do think both of Sovereignty and Journalism have that turn of foot to put Baeza under pressure.
Yeah, I completely agree with everything you said. Me and you are reading Baeza the exact same in this contest. If he sits second earlier on, I'm going to be a little bit worried about him. If he sits 4th or 5th, you're okay. I think Sovereignty will catch you. I think Journalism might be able to catch you as well. But if he sits second and he does help set the pace or just sit on the coattails of Rodriguez, I'm a little bit worried about Baeza. I'm going to be honest with you. He is definitely one that I'll be using on the day. We mentioned Rodriguez. He's an interesting part in this race because he's the one that kind of stands in the way of the possibility of Baeza getting to the lead because we know that Rodriguez will get there. He managed to win the Wood Memorial. It was a nice effort. He beat Grande. Both of them subsequently then missed the Kentucky Derby. But if they went to the Derby, they wouldn't have been back numbers. They would have both have been players.
Yeah, I actually quite liked Rodriguez as an underhorse in the Derby, but he obviously didn't go with a bruised foot. I think in this race he's interesting because he'll make the front, but I don't think he's good enough to win, I have to admit. He's obviously beaten Baeza once before in his career, and he smashed him, actually, in a West Coast maiden. But Baeza was very raw and inexperienced at the time, and I think he's just a much better horse now. Rodriguez in the Wood Memorial was good, but it wasn't a great field. If you look at the horses he beat, and they haven't exactly come out and boosted the form. So I don't know. I don't think he's good enough. He could easily run a place. But yeah, if he takes top spot, then I'll be losing.
I kind of think he might be more of a miler than Marlon 2. I know he ran over, we'll Americanize it, a Marlon an eighth last time around. I feel that he's got the cruising speed that would make him very dangerous over a mile.
Yeah, I don't disagree, and he has the tenacity as well to be strong late, so he can go quick up top and then battle them off. Whereas over this distance, you kind of need to quicken a little bit in the middle part of the race. I don't know if he's got that, and I think he's going to finish a bit tired. So I prefer the stronger stayers. I'd be surprised if Baeza didn't beat him. I'd be very surprised if Sovereignty didn't beat him. And if Journalism rocks up, there is no way that Rodriguez makes the top three here. But he could run a place if one of them underperforms.
Yeah, I agree entirely on that. Speaking of strong stayers, Hill Road is also in here. He's drawn out in stall 1. Maybe Chad Brown wouldn't have loved being in stall 1, but we know how he's going to run. He'll take back regardless. He'll be probably last throughout the early part of the contest. He did the podcast a good turn when he won the Peter Pan last time around, and he looked good in doing so. I thought he overcame a bias with McAfee and Captain Cook sitting more towards the 4. He closed really well. Again, he's just another horse that I feel would have appreciated an actual Belmont Stakes over the Belmont trip and at Belmont. I mean, the track is whatever, but definitely the Belmont trip.
Yeah, I just don't think he's good enough either. You know, he's going to be out the back. He's going to try and back run Journalism, Baeza, and Sovereignty, and it's not going to happen unless some sort of miracle occurs. He just doesn't seem good enough to beat those horses from the position he's going to find himself in. Case closed for me.
Yeah, if they get going a bit too early, i.e. if Baeza tries to kick and then suddenly Umberto Rispoli wants to follow him on Journalism, and then Junior Alvarado wants to do the same on Sovereignty, and they're doing that before... I mean, they turn for home, turning out the back straight. Suddenly, Hill Road is a player for the minor placings, but I don't think he's a player as far as winning the race actually goes. But he is a fascinating part. Deep closers, they can be factors in Belmonts in years gone by, but you look at this Belmont and you look at last year, that wasn't necessarily a case. They are the main ones in the Belmont. Of the others, I mean, we have to mention Heart of Honour for Jamie and Saffie Osborne. Would have learnt plenty from that run in the Preakness, and he did stay on quite nicely. I get the feeling they sent him to the Preakness looking to get him ready for this race.
Yeah, I don't think it will change anything, to be honest with you. I don't think he's good enough to win. I'm very grateful again that they're running here because he provides not only each way players 3 places with an 8-runner field, but also provides some European interest. He draws out wide, not ideal for a horse that's slowly away anyway, but he's probably going to be towards the back of the pack. He just seemed to lack a couple of gears on the turn. He was first off the bridle in the Preakness and then plugged on. It'll probably be the same here.
Yeah, they have done a lot of work with his gate speed, but he needs a lot more from that. So he will be staying on when probably it's too late. Uncaged and Crudo, any honourable mentions?
Uncaged isn't good enough, but again, full credit to Mark Poli for putting the horse in the race. And Crudo is talented. He's very unexposed as well. Could be anything, but he's going to need to be a monster to beat these, and it just feels unlikely. He'll be part of the pace setup early, so we will hear his name a few times in the commentary, but I don't think he'll be there late.
Absolutely. That is our run through the entirety of the field, all 8 of them in the Belmont Stakes. Just before we get to our selections, remember, we will do a Royal Ascot video going through the US runners that are coming over for next week, if we get to 800 subscribers by the time the Belmont is finished, and also 75 likes on this video. So drop a like, leave a comment down below. It all helps out massively. Thank you very much for watching our podcast for the final time, Tom, in the Triple Crown series. It's time to joint play.
There it is. That's what we needed. I've kind of got the lighting for it as well now. I forgot to turn a light on when we start recording, and now I'm basically in pitch black. But that was atmospheric.
Yeah, and apologies for anyone who's driving in the car. I actually caught myself out once with a joint play because I was driving in the
That's a
car.
bit embarrassing.
I was listening to it back, and then suddenly I didn't realize how loud it was. Like, it's really loud. So I was like driving. God, Luke, you really crushed that one. Tom, who is the joint play?
The joint play is Sovereignty in the 2025 Belmont Stakes. I'm going to kick this off, obviously, by saying I like Sovereignty, but I found this very, very difficult. I thought this was the hardest race to assess of the whole Triple Crown this year. And I know that sounds mad because the Derby should be a lot harder to predict. But Sovereignty going into the Derby had so much in his favour. There was a big field. There was a strong pace. There were only 2 or 3 I thought we could worry about. In here, we've got the same 2 or 3 to worry about, but they have subsequently looked like they are much better now than when they were pre-Derby. I need to see Sovereignty do it again, and I think he will, but I was very close to putting up Baeza, I have to admit. This is a great race. It's all going to depend about where these horses sit in the early part and the rides they're given. I don't think there's going to be much between them, but loyalty to one side, I think Sovereignty is the best horse in the race. I think he's the most logical winner. I like that he's been freshened, and he should get a nice trip through and then pounce late. That is the hope. With loyalty, come on, Sovereignty.
Oh, that's intense. Now Tom's crashing cars left, right, and centre. I'm exactly the same. I was very close to putting Baeza up. And like I say, if this was a mile and a half, I probably would have put Baeza up. I just think Sovereignty's a better horse. I just think Sovereignty is the best horse in the race. And when you bring it down to the short and curlies, that's exactly what you kind of need when you're selecting horses for races like this. I can see the race going this way. Rodriguez leads, Baeza's just in second, then maybe back and forth is Journalism following him, and then possibly on the rail, hopefully coming out a little bit, just sitting on the backside of Journalism, you'll find Sovereignty, and it'll be a case of who's going to crack first, who's going to have to commit for home first. I must say, Tom, and we're going to do our 1, 2, 3 in a moment for this race because we've done it for the Derby and we've done it for the Preakness, but I was very, very close to putting Baeza up. I think off that, we're probably going to have the same 1, 2, 3. I mean, I'm Sovereignty, Baeza, Journalism. Would you differ from that?
No, I agree with that. I know it's really boring. People at home maybe looking for long shots or horses to play at bigger prices in the win, play, show or each way if you're in the UK. But these three rods are top class. One of them would have to drastically underperform, or the race setup would have to go in a specific way for another horse to benefit from it. E.g., they go exceptionally slow up top. Rodriguez gets an easy lead and he clambers home in a place. I think otherwise it's very hard to pick any of these 3 horses out of the frame. Baeza, for me, has the benefit of being fresh over Journalism, and Sovereignty is obviously the horse that we like, and we put him on top. So, yeah, the same 1, 2, 3, Sovereignty, Baeza, Journalism.
If you did want to assure yourself a little bit, if you are going in with us with Sovereignty, you could also play a reverse forecast or even a straight forecast on Baeza to beat Sovereignty. I think that would be the only other alternative that I could see. But that is the renewal of 2025 of what looks to be such a good Belmont Stakes. It was a fantastic race last year. It's better this year. Next year, we'll be back to Belmont Park. We have been told anyway that we're going to be back to Belmont Park. But look, they've knocked it down. They're rebuilding it. Things change. That is a look over at Saratoga. A few fantastic days of racing. This is one of the meetings of the calendar year last term. Hopefully this is exactly the same. As we say, we're looking to get to 800 subscribers, 75 likes in this video, and we'll be talking about Royal Ascot next week. American racing next week, Tom, what have we got?
It's not good, mate. I think it's the Delaware Oaks and Delaware Derby. To be fair, it could be a week that we take off from the previews. We'll have to see the nominations. If we do, obviously, we might do that Royal Ascot video if you hit our subscriber and like limit. But it's not good next week. Obviously, horses are being kept to one side with Saratoga, the main meeting coming up, Churchill as well. We have a couple more weeks of that after next week. So, yeah, next week might be a bit of a scramble, but you should still subscribe and you don't want to miss any of our content.
Please, for the love of God, help us talk about Royal Ascot. Please, I'm begging you, help us talk about Royal Ascot. We also have loads of NFL content on our channel as well as we're getting ready for the NFL season, which is only like 90 days away or so. It's not actually that far away. So subscribe, leave a comment down below, leave a like. We are the Turf and Touchdowns podcast. We're back in some capacity next week. But until then, stay safe, look after one another, and come on, Sovereignty.